Hey family, thank you for tuning into Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ifa, brought to you by 𝗃𝗏𝗃 Candles and More, where only the strongest roots see the light. And if you haven't had the opportunity, please hit that subscribe button and press on that like button. Really excited about today's episode. We have a woman that is really setting social media spiritually ablaze, right? She is the owner of the Ashe Shop, and apart from that, an estimated guest on our podcast here at Our Roots. Please join me in welcoming Miss Ashley the Storyteller.
Hey, 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃. Thank you so much for having me.
Ashley, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast, taking the time away from all your social media influence, where you're having such an impact on IG and a bunch of other mediums. And you've been on our radar for a while. We actually just reached 10K. So, at that point, we're like, hey, maybe we could, reach out and maybe get a response, right?
Well, I mean, you're definitely getting a response. You are on my Shopify podcast list. I listen to your podcast regularly, and I love the message that you're putting out. So, of course, I'm honored to be here. And again, thank you for having me.
We sincerely appreciate it. Yeah, a bunch of people were saying, you got to interview Ashley. And when we looked at it, we were like, definitely somebody that really embodies the persona of what we feel is to be an 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗲 practitioner, spiritual entrepreneur, someone that's really carrying our flag high and, representing us well. How important was it for you when you started your business and really, came out spiritually to represent what you believed in and your beliefs so well? What motivated that?
I grew up in the South, grew up in New Orleans, and there's a lot of history that we learn, but there's so much that we don't learn. And when I started learning about Orisha and I started learning about Ifa, it flabbergasted me because I'm like, why don't we know this? Why aren't we being taught this information? Why is this information not being common to us? And it was just a fire burning inside of me. I could not shut up about it. Anybody, look, you're going to get a story, you're going to hear a little bit of history or something, because I just felt very strongly that this is something everybody should know about. The Orisha should not be secretive and something that's hush hush. The name of 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏, the name of Oshun Obatala should be household and commonplace words and names that we use, and not something that as people of color and people who have endured colonialism, we know nothing about.
Definitely. No, and it's something when you find out about it, it makes you definitely passionate. It's interesting you mentioned the lack of secrecy as well, because, there's aspects that we're public about, there's aspects that we're obviously very private about. But when you go to places like Cuba, I haven't been to Africa, but I know so many people that have, Ifa and Orisha is alive. You'll see somebody, practicing or invoking on the corner. You'll see, said, public servant rocking, a bracelet or a necklace. So it's very alive. And usually us, especially people who have, encountered that, we want to somehow recreate that in the U.S. or in our community. I know New Orleans is a very spiritual place with a lot of culture. How did you find out about Ifa and Orisha, specifically over there? What was your process like?
Um, I started just doing research. I am a scholar. I'm always in some school's database looking up literary articles. So when I
Nice.
first came across it, I wasn't sure about it. But I started asking people I know who practice voodoo and who are more into spirituality, and they knew more. And I found that the more I asked, I started being connected with people who were actual practitioners. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like if you don't ask, you won't know.
Yeah, because people really aren't gonna bring it up. It's not like, hey, I get here and I'm a 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏. Me and Phil laugh a lot because I wear my hat and things like that for the interviews. But if you see me on the street, I mean, I usually don't have much on, or at least it's not visible. So definitely, if you want to delve, you have to really dig in.
Hmm.
But as you're learning about Ifa and Orisha, you're becoming interested. At what point do you kind of look at it and be like, wow, I want to dedicate my life to this? When did that kind of happen for you?
That for me, I am a mental health practitioner. I've worked in mental and behavioral health for
Thank
years.
you.
And for me, I had experienced some traumatic life situations and I was experiencing an episode of depression. And I kept going to church looking for something, anything, some type of solace, just anything. And I wasn't finding it. And I found that even on my own, reading about Orisha and reading the Patakis, and what really stole my heart was 𝗲𝗲𝗿𝗲𝗍 Tells of the Natural World by 𝘃𝗵𝗎𝗍, may he rest in peace.
Yeah, by
It shook my perspective on how the world was created and how we experience the world. And it really opened up my eyes. And I was kind of like, it's like I've been sheltered my whole life. And digging into that and then talking to different practitioners, I felt a part of me was angry because I'm like, y'all been keeping this from me my whole life. But then it was the connection there and really understanding the world from the perspective of our ancestors. For me, it just clicked and it resonated in a way where it's like, you can't, once you know something, you can't unknow it. And there was no turning back around for me. I knew Orisha was for me. Even before I learned how to really pray and I learned any prayers in Yoruba, I literally used to just say the Orisha's names that I knew out loud because I'm like, I just want you in my life.
and that's really interesting because the Orisha's names in themselves, when you translate them, they are invocations, right? It's how you kind of
Mhm.
move that energy. So being that you found, and by the way, great shirt. We gotta let people know how we can
Thank
get
you.
one of those as well. Um,
Thank you.
we'll definitely let them know. And but being that you found Ifa and Orisha, I'm guessing that that wasn't something that was really present in your home. Like, could you let people know a little bit about your background? Aside from your professional credentials.
Well, my family is originally from Alabama, a very small town in Alabama called 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃.
Oh,
So my first religious experience is in a southern Baptist church. We used to sit there in the summer and the air conditioner broke and the preacher still have on all of his robes, baby. So my first encounter with God was, how did the pastor not pass out and it's 100 degrees
that's
in
a
here
miracle
and
right
he
there.
is
The
hooping and hollering and screaming.
word.
But my family being from the country, my grandmother was what we call superstitious.
Mm,
And she grew a lot of her own roots and stuff, and a lot of her things were home remedies. Her going to the store for some cough syrup was not something that happened. And as we start learning about Ifa practices and Osane and how medicine comes from the herbs and from the earth, it was so many things from my childhood that just started to connect. But I grew up a good Southern Baptist Christian girl. I thought Christ was everything, and to find out that there's something more than Christ, I was like, look, I'm all in here. I'm digging into this. What's going like what is all of this? Like literally it's and to find out from my dad's side, my grandmother was a shaman and my great grandmother was a shaman. So the
wow.
work I do with herbs and stuff is all natural, and tying that into religion, which we see with Ifa, tying the use of herbs into spiritual practice. Yeah, that was something that's kind of like we have been doing this. This is in our blood. We just don't understand the logistics of it.
Yeah, that seems to be the common theme. I've really had the privilege and honor of initiating a lot of African American people back into Ifa, and that seems to be the consistent theme of church is great, and me personally, I think Jesus was amazing. Really great guy. I wish sometimes more aspects of his story were focused upon, but at the end of the day, fabulous person. But I noticed that a lot of people say, "Hey, I was in church. I had these wants, I had these needs for knowledge, wisdom, clarity, and I wasn't getting it, thus causing me to explore and investigate." And it's really wild because you kind of find out more about yourself because even you mentioning grandma was doing this, and then your father's mother. Did was it ever actually um, revealed that they were initiated in hoodoo or anything like that? Did any of that ever come to light about those women?
My father, once I started my business and it was crazy because I thought my father, he's so opinionated. He was gonna be like, "Oh no, that's crazy, that's witchcraft." And he sat down with me and said people used to come to the house to visit my grandmother. people would come to the home when they needed healing and they were hurting. He never said specifically that there was an initiation or anything done, but he told me concretely that this is in our blood. Like healing, being healing, working with the community is something that comes natural. He's like, it skipped a generation with his sisters and brothers, and he's happy to see it within me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I'm not sure if you've had the opportunity, but we did an interview on Hoodoo with Mr. 𝗀𝗲𝗹𝗁, Mr. Big
Hmm.
1090 Feek, man. On, Hoodoo and his family actually being from Wilmington, North Carolina, and he kind of came to the conclusion something wasn't regular about his family because he walked in a room and saw a bunch of interesting jars and things on the floor, and finally and ultimately accepting who he was, after said kind of resistance from his community. So it's a lot of similarities there where it's like, it
Hmm.
happened. We really didn't talk about it, but it was miraculous nonetheless. And to get that support from dad is pretty rare, or just in general.
Yeah.
But,
Because
how
I
did,
come from a family that's big on we don't talk about the past. Like how
nice.
in that the Encanto they don't talk about Bruno, they don't talk about the past in my family. So asking about anything like that is pretty much taboo.
Yeah,
I'm going to get side eyes and closed mouths. So my dad sharing what he does share with me is really a gift. And I've learned that it's not just my family, it's a lot of African American families where we're struggling to learn about our ancestry and our spiritual lineage because outside of Christ, don't ask about it.
for sure. And you look at things such as hoodoo, root work, all of these are Afro descendant concepts. I mean, there was no, other than the Native Americans, who their trajectory may even go back that far as well. These are things that definitely didn't come with the people who brought Christianity over. So, you see this re-encountering now where people are like, I'm looking for more and I know there's more in me. What were we doing before the church? And that's bringing a lot of people
Mhm.
back into these circles. So, after acceptance and confirmation from dad, the clarity of your ancestors, what was the vision behind opening Ashe Shop? What was that defining moment where, like, this is what I want to provide to people and I'm actually going to do it?
I remember the first time I decided to tell a story, to sit in front of a camera and tell a story about the Orisha. This story had been on my mind for over a month, and it was hurting me not to tell it. And once I started, I couldn't stop. And my whole mission is to bring Orisha to the community, to allow us to see that this isn't something we should be afraid of, or that this isn't something that we can't investigate or look into, but to allow people to see that there's happiness here. And it's just literally sharing my journey, the ups and the downs, um, and just putting it out there. And I felt very compelled to do it because when I started the Ashe Shop, I couldn't find anybody really who was doing it. I couldn't find stories. I couldn't find, and the elders I found was like social media. Why would I be on that?
Yeah.
And just making it more commonplace so people could stop being afraid to discover our roots.
I tell you, me and a lot of people aren't gonna believe this. I love because there's not an episode, and these are very unscripted, obviously, right? I mean, we
Mhm.
spoke earlier in the week, and your schedule, my schedule. By the grace of God, we're here now. But it always comes up, the roots, who we are. And me and Erica actually came up with that, right before we went to bed one night. We said, this word sounds good, this word sounds good. We're gonna put it together, and it really fits.
It
Um,
does.
but but when you look at a place like New Orleans, right?
Hmm.
What swayed you? Because I would imagine you've been exposed to voodoo to a certain degree since whenever you guys moved from Alabama to New Orleans.
Hmm.
What really swayed you more towards Orisha, and what positive things were you able to take from possibly experiencing voodoo into your Orisha practice?
It was the values of Ifa and the importance of
Nice.
Iwapele and the importance of character. And it's literally that Iwapele and that quest for Iwapele that has been my medicine when it comes to working through having feelings of anxiety or having feelings of depression or being hyperactive. It's remembering that the foundation for everything is character. And it was Iwapele that really sold me on Ifa and looking at the values of Ifa. I love voodoo, and I love studying it. I love voodoo practitioners. I love just being able to witness their practices. But it was Ifa for me, and it's kind of like when you ask these questions, it's almost like I never really questioned it.
Yeah.
It just felt natural, and I just flowed into the direction towards 𝗃𝗁𝗹𝗁 and 𝗃𝗶𝗸𝗲𝗏 and Ogun and Oshun. Like it just felt like something had been missing, and that was the missing puzzle piece in my life.
Yeah, I love that. And shout out to our voodoo brothers and sisters that are out there. I mean, we're definitely brother tribes because, when you look at the places like Benin and Dahomey, where
Mhm.
Vodun really comes from, and Odua actually being native of that land before migrating to Ife, it really comes down to which one, just calls you or it feels natural. It's like almost starting a relationship. It's natural,
Mhm.
it's not forced, it's gratifying, and a lot of great things come from it. So that's awesome for people to know. So, delving more into like Ifa and Orisha now, like who is the Orisha that you resonate with the most, or who's getting the most of your attention lately?
Lately, because it's always I make it a point to work with and build a strong relationship with each Orisha, not really focusing on one or another. And right now for me, it's 𝗃𝗏𝗯. I was thinking about I visited Cape Town, and I think about the
Wow.
story of 𝗃𝗏𝗯 eating heads. I
Oh,
visited Cape Town and we got to eat sheep head. And as an American, I'm very American.
yeah.
So them seeing these dead sheep heads, and they got this pan and the fire,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
throwing it in the fire, baby, it smells so good.
Yeah,
It
no, yeah.
smells so good. And then they pull it out and it's cooked, and we start eating the heads.
They say the cheek is the best
And
part.
this has been just resonating with me lately because it's kind of like we have to remember that our head controls our body. It's what we think and how we think about and how we perceive things that help us to plan our moves forward. And it's 𝗃𝗏𝗯 who's just been surrounding me lately. And of course, 𝗃𝗁𝗹𝗁 is always around. 𝗃𝗁𝗹𝗁 is always present in our lives because I always think like I had a plan, but 𝗃𝗁𝗹𝗁 had another plan. I thought something was gonna work one way, and 𝗃𝗁𝗹 was sitting over there in the cut, like, huh, that's what you thought was gonna happen. But
That's usually how he moves. That's usually how he interacts. It's funny you mention Elegua and just him having his own plans, right? Like the other day, we
mm,
had a process that we were gonna do with a mouse, and the mouse is in the box and whatnot, and we're talking and sitting and eating, and then when we go to look for the mouse had ate his way out of the box. So obviously that's an animal that really resonates with Ashu and whatnot, and he had other plans. He said not today, guys, and he just kind of dipped off. So it happens all the time with him. What was it like going to Africa?
I've been to Africa twice. I've been to Cape Town, South Africa, and I've been to Lagos, Nigeria.
Wow.
Both experiences were life changing.
Yeah.
I'm always going into things with an open mind, looking to expand my perspective on things. And Cape Town, South Africa is a vibe. Being
Nice.
in that environment literally shaped how I looked at our people as African Americans, and that's when it really clicked at me that we're missing something. Something's missing from our education and from how we identify ourselves. And then going to Lagos, whew, that experience there, outside of the fact that all the food was spicy,
Oh yeah.
it was what shocked me was that everybody I met knew of the Orisha, but I met a lot of Christians and I met a lot of people who practice Islam.
Yeah. It's an
Where and I had to dig to find Ifa practitioners, but that's because I went for the trip was for scholarly purposes and not spiritual purposes. So just going on a scholarly perspective, just talking to people about Orisha, a lot of the educated individuals I met who are Nigerian were not as willing to engage in the conversation as I would have expected.
No, it's an interesting dynamic over there, and we had the privilege of interviewing Baba Popola, who's actually from Lagos, and it's really interesting because it really resembles Cuba. When you look at Cuba, the
Mhm.
official religion within a communist state, it's a deist where there
Mhm.
is a God, but it's non-denominational. But the old saying was, everybody visits the brujo at night, so
Mhm.
it's the same thing over there where, the official population, Christian, Muslim, etc., the indigenous census is like less than 5%. Everybody visits the 𝗃𝗏𝗏, whether it's a naming ceremony, whether it's, any of these different things. It's just become very taboo to be able to speak about it because of the modernization and kind of the sway in public opinion away from, indigenous education.
Before visiting Lagos, I was torn between did I want to follow the 𝘃𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃 path or did I want to follow the 𝘂𝗏𝗵𝗵 path? And after that trip, I realized how valuable and how important my American roots are. And that's why I decided to seek out elders in the 𝘂𝗏𝗵 traditions because it's an American perspective that we have that is not included, and I don't really see present in 𝘃𝗂𝗃𝗃 that I see in the 𝘂𝗏𝗵 practices, especially 𝘂𝗏𝗵 meaning my friend. This is something that we're kind of like, okay, are you my friend? Do I know you? Do you understand where I'm coming from? And it was that trip to Lagos that really showed me like my roots may be African, but they're here in America also.
Yeah, you can have roots in Africa, but your flowers can be where you are.
Hmm.
And I'll be frank with you. I mean, apart from kind of being born into the ambiance, being born in
Oops.
Miami,
Hmm.
I've had the opportunity where, I've interacted with so many wonderful 𝘃𝗂𝗃𝗃 priests and seen so many beautiful processes over there. Even with that, I still maintain my practice within this discipline because I haven't seen anything lacking, right? So
Hmm.
I guess you saw that as well, being that you stayed. Who were some of the people, if you're able to mention them, that really guided you through those first steps, that really breeded that confidence in you of, hey, I'm moving forward here. You're mentoring me. You're guiding me. Maybe some flowers.
It was my god sisters who really helped me to feel that sense of belonging when it came to initiating and really moving in through these practices. These three women just literally are powerhouses when it comes to their belief in Ifa, and I love them and definitely appreciate them guiding me and walking with me through this. Because I remember my first initiation when I received my lecades, and anybody who knows me knows I'm gonna put on a good face. I'm gonna smile. I'm gonna try to be positive. Next thing I know, I am in my god sister's lap, crying like a baby. Like literally, I'm petite and she's larger than me. So literally, she's holding me, and I'm literally in her lap, crying. And it was that experience that let me know I was in the right space because those tears were things that I had been holding on to for so long, and to find sisters to who I was able to connect with has literally guided me and given me strength through all of my other initiations and all of the everything else I've gone through since then.
And that's great to hear because, the biggest obstacle for a lot of people who are American born, kind of coming into the 𝘂𝗏𝗵𝗵 that's so Caribbean, Latin influenced, whether it's a language barrier, whether it's culture barriers, for you to have a positive experience is really reinforcing for a lot of people that probably look like you, feel like you about certain things, like people that can
Hmm.
resemble you, and they can feel and understand that it is a safe place. And it takes experiences like that to let people know you are okay here. You are protected here and you will grow here because it's through those kind of releases that so much elevation happens. I've seen it multiple times, whether it's in like a spiritual mass where someone that doesn't know you comes with a spirit, tells you your whole life, and it's just a very emotional moment like, wow, there is a God that knows what I'm going through. So, the fact that you had that positive experience is probably what leads to right now because the big mission we have here is to make sure whoever wants to be a part of 𝘂𝗏𝗵 practice feels welcome and grows here because we don't want to lose anybody. We want people to be able to wear that green and yellow and be like, I'm good here, I'm comfortable here. I've learned Ifa. My elders, they coax that into me and I'm able to grow and help others, which is what this is. It's a ladder concept which comes from Africa. So you mentioned 𝘃𝗶𝗃𝗃, and when we talk about 𝘃𝗶𝗃𝗃, it really is. I'll say that the whole religion is based on Ori, right? The head.
Hmm.
But to be able to delve into the power of ori, the vehicle is 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲. Because when we don't have good character or conduct, we will never be able to get the full fruits of our mental sacrifice, right? Being able to react a certain way, interpret things a certain way, be patient, which is a huge vehicle towards good conduct. You being somebody that's visible, notable, you know, the more people see you, the more people may have something, contrary to say, or, ulterior feelings, etc. It comes with the territory, right? How have you been able to deal with a meteoric rise in social media and with the people who may be detractors? How has 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 taken you to a point where you're able to handle that, and how are you able to make it constructive?
Well, Oshun sits very close to me. So when it first happened, I was like, I know y'all not playing with me. But but it's not about me. And it's about me really putting forth who I really am and being able to be vulnerable and understanding that in vulnerable positions everybody isn't going to like me and my feelings are hurt and I feel slighted because I'm vulnerable in sharing these stories. I'm vulnerable in sharing my stories. I'm vulnerable in sharing what I've learned, and it's not about me and it's not about them or what they think. It's my mission, and it's in me to share this and to speak out, and if they don't like it they need to take that up with their priest. That's not for me to deal with. And that's a lesson I had to learn, and learning to be patient with other people is something I learned while working in mental health. People are going to approach you from where they are, from their perspective. You're not going to approach me where I am. So I have to understand that this is where they are along their journey. And I pray that they find happiness. I pray that they find growth. I pray that they find peace, because that's for them to deal with. That's not on me.
Yeah,
And
give it back to God, right?
yeah,
I tell you, you
leading with my actions and knowing that um I have to act with integrity. I have to act with humility. I have to be respectful, not just to myself, but of my goons. I want my goons to look at me and be proud. I don't want them to look at me and be like, oh, Ashley losing her temper again. So yeah, it's been a lesson.
yeah, it's a process. We're here to grow. We're not meant to be the polished diamond that we end up when we leave here. So, we come in rough, and, Orisha and Ifa, through experiences and this wisdom, starts polishing us. I tell you, within my own spiritual practice, I've always been very logical, right? Because I think even within spirit, there is such a logical aspect to things, right? We still have to take things through the scientific method, understand which realm we're working within, which, whether it be physical, whether it be spiritual. You being a mental health professional, I think, gives you such an advantage as well, because you're able to differentiate. You have spiritual gifts, but at the same time, you have quite some preparation. I'm the kind of guy, if I look at a situation, there are signs of Ifa or Odu of Ifa that say, hey, your situation may not necessarily be spiritual. You may need to see said professional, go through said process, and that's where your results lie. And that's what really motivated me towards Orula, because I said, this guy has so much confidence, he'll send his client to a whole nother professional and discipline. So, how has your mental health preparation, professionally, aided you in spiritually helping people?
I naturally in undergrad I tried out different um classes and different majors and things, and psychology was always right for me. I ended up receiving my master's of science in psychology and
Nice.
just digging into mental health. I realized very soon I did not want to be a counselor and I did not want to be a therapist. I specialize in pathology, which is diagnoses, and I specialize in the studies of personality development and growth, and really identifying patterns in people's personalities, and especially really picking out symptoms of mental illness and how they connect together to create disorders. I found when I would go in to do assessments with clients, they would be sitting there and I would just know stuff. And so I would end up digging and asking questions that would help uncover certain truths that they were like, how did you even pick this out? So when I first went in, I ended up getting a reading with the Baba Ifa regarding my career, and he told me that I was a medium, that spirits speak to me, and I understand those messages, and I sometimes confer those messages. And I was like, so that's why I went into psychology. That's why I wanted to understand people, because it's through understanding people, we're able to help them to heal. My background has helped me to differentiate between when things are spiritual and to be able to pick out and assess, okay, well, you may be experiencing symptoms related to generalized anxiety disorder, or you may be experiencing symptoms related to depression. Obsessive compulsive disorder is a big one when we see people go into spirituality, because some of the rituals and protocols within the tradition can be harmful for somebody diagnosed with OCD. I decided to start providing divination services because I wanted people to have an option for divination that did include and did include a mental health perspective, because it's important for us to be able, especially as healers, to be able to recognize certain patterns and pathologies within people. And personally, my experience has taught me the first thing we learn in learning how to be a therapist and a counselor is to remove our own bias, to not approach a situation from our perspective based on our experiences, but to take time to actively listen to our client and see what they're going through, identify what they need, and identify possible treatments. And that's something that I do in every tarot session, in every divination session. I look and say, okay, what's going on here? What's being said? What isn't being said? What is the possible diagnosis, and what treatments would be helpful for this person?
Yeah, I gotta love that, because I gotta say that's my same approach, because it's the ethical thing to do. You always want to put
Mhm.
somebody in the right hands, or if they're in the right hands and you have those capabilities, make sure we're using the right method, because at the end of the day, what the client needs, what the patient wants is a result, right?
Mhm.
Any memorable cases? I mean, without delving into like ethical privilege or anything like that, maybe a session or a moment where you're like, whoa, this person is like spiritually being overrun, like overstimulated, possibly possession, anything like that that you can recall?
I was working at a psych hospital, and I spent a lot of time working on trauma units. In trauma units, you see a lot of PTSD, you see a lot of mood disorders, a lot of behavioral disorders, a lot of trauma based disorders. But one of the most interesting to work with is dissociative identity disorder, which is also known as multiple personality disorder.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm sitting up one night studying, reading, doing my thing. And I have this client. She comes out and she normally speaks in a very even tone. But this night she's talking to me like a child. And I'm looking at her, I'm looking at the way she's carrying herself, I'm looking at her mannerisms like this is a completely different person. So I'm like, okay, let's walk back to your room. And she gets this little light thing that she likes. And I know I've talked to her therapist before. The light helps her to ground and to censor and come back. So we have the little blinking light on and we sitting in the room. I'm sitting with her and she's rocking back and forth. And she goes from this baby voice to this deep, very, very, very deep voice. At this point, I'm getting scared
Oh yeah.
because I'm waiting for her to come back out. I'm waiting for the normal person, her normal mannerisms and stuff to come back out. But this somebody completely different. So I'm talking to her. I don't ask her to identify herself because I don't want her to ground in it. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna keep the light on. I'm starting to sing a song that I know me and your girl be singing earlier. And she's rocking back and forth. And she's like, Ashley, what are you doing in here?
Oh wow.
That's one of those experiences where I'm like, God, God had to have stepped in here and take the wheel, because this woman, the way she looked, her mannerisms, everything about her changed. And I saw two different personalities come out of this one person. And that for me is kind of like, okay, I know mental illness is real, but I also think that God has a role to play in this, because what happened in this woman's life where this is going on with her, and that's something I will never forget, because it's like, and people try to say, well, people make this up and this is a game. And knowing, like, within myself, I have very strong discernment. When I feel something, I feel it. And this was two completely different people.
What an experience. Yeah, it definitely sends a chill. But when you look at mediumship and things like that, it makes perfect sense. because you could have, like you said, what you clinically termed it going on there. At least coming from this angle as well, it's all about process of elimination, right? When we're diagnosing,
Mhm.
when we're analyzing, etc., we just want to make sure we're covering all those squares. And I tell you, I wouldn't mind if within any of these institutions, I wish they had a spiritual department, because it would just really remove that doubt. Like, hey, we did that already. Now we can just focus on the clinical aspect of things, right? With ongoing care. We did an interview about 𝗃𝗏𝗏 psychology actually with Dr. 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏 over there in 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏 in Miami, which was fabulous in my opinion. And she even said, she would love it if and she practices, I think it's called Jungian psychology, psychotherapy, etc. And she says, there are parts or aspects of the brain that still manage to be or misunderstood, better said, or we haven't delved into,
Mhm.
the possibilities of what could be, there. So I ask you, as a mental professional, someone that's educated, what would you think or like to see within your field that you may think is lacking, that could possibly help much more people?
One thing, in a lot of my treatment plans with my clients, I would always recommend this person needs some type of spiritual guidance. This person needs to be going to church, and that's not something you can include in a clinical treatment plan.
Correct.
I think that as mental health practitioners, we do need to have some type of spiritual collaboration going on here. We do need to be educating ourselves. And as hoodoo, voodoo, root work, Ifa, and all this becomes more commonplace, I think we will see more of an integration of spiritual practices
Well,
into mental health practices because we're going to be encountering clients who are 𝘃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 practitioners, who are voodoo practitioners, who are 𝘃𝗶𝗃𝗃𝗃 practitioners. And this is going to be something where we say, okay, let me sit down with your madrina or padrino and
well,
see what are they seeing from you and what are they observing, and collaborating with them and seeing how can we create a treatment plan that's in alignment with their spiritual beliefs. Because when I work with clients, not only do I say, okay, baby, you need to be taking a spiritual bath, but I'm also going to give them an exercise to help them psychologically with what they have going on.
I love the idea of the communal approach, everybody integrating. It's like when you see a bunch of physicians in a room, debating over how to best treat the client or the patient. Within Ifa, it's the same thing. Like, for example, like, let's say somebody I've given hand of Ifa to is from another house and they're going to initiate an Orisha. I sit down with their elders of Orisha. I'm sitting down with the people who are going to be playing key roles, whether it's the lady processing all the animals or the elders that are initiating the other 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. We're coming up with that action plan to make sure everybody feels satisfied, and we're doing all that we can to, help the client and give them the best result and experience possible. So I think within medicine, that integrated approach between the soul and the spirit and the body, part of incorporating the mind, emotions, etc. It's just going to make for a healthier, happier patient, right? So I love all that. Now, you mentioned the tarot cards, so I got to ask you, what's it like when you're shuffling those things? How is it empowering for you? What's that experience like when you're about to toss?
Well, the cards aren't for me. The cards are for the client.
Yep.
Um, Spirit speaks to me. I could sit here and just read somebody. I do not need those cards. Spirit, they be spilling. They spill
Oh
all the
no.
tea and they know I'm listening. But the cards are for the client. The cards really give the client a visual of the messages that comes out and confirms the message that's being delivered. It sometimes helps me guide on, okay, we need to take a soft approach because they may not go right into the topic, like say somebody's boyfriend is cheating, and I'll look at the card that comes out and it's like, well, instead of me saying, girl, your boyfriend cheating on you, I'm going to ask, are your needs being met in your relationship?
There you go.
Or are what are your relationship needs, and what do you give to your partner? What are you not getting from your partner? That would be like a 6 of cups coming out, as opposed to like a 3 of swords coming out, where it's like, girl, just stab it in the heart and just get it over with. But the cards are really for the client, because I find that when people have a visual of the message that's being delivered, it helps them to understand the message, and it helps them to resonate with the message. Because again, it's not about me, it's about the client. Are they getting what they need?
For all those people who follow you or are interested in your routine and process, what deck are you using? What's your favorite deck?
Oh, so many.
Which
My
one did you start
favorite,
with
my
besides the
all-time
favorite one?
favorite. I started with the 𝗿𝗲𝗹𝗁, just a classic 𝗿𝗲𝗹, but I
Nice,
ended
yeah,
up getting the Afro Goddess Tarot
nice.
by 𝗃𝗏𝗏𝗏. This artist literally hand painted every single card. What's this
Wow,
out? The Judgment. She hand painted every single card
that's gorgeous.
for this deck. And
Wow,
it's the work and it's the time she put into it. This deck has become my best friend. And I had to make sure I got the first drop that she did from this deck. It's signed by the artist and everything. And I
wow,
go to it regularly. This deck has been with me to Africa. It's been to Switzerland with me. It's been to Mexico with me. I do not leave home without that one.
wow. No, that's awesome. I'm sure a bunch of people are going to appreciate that. What's your process like before a reading? Are we listening to some music? Are we meditating? We got a candle lit? What's your, at least, initially, what was it like to get into that space? What were you doing?
I find that music is always present. So music is always on. So sometimes I end up turning the music off and I have to sit in silence. I just have to sit and breathe. Candles, it depends on the client, but there's always a glass of water near. There's always, I need that silence and taking time to breathe. And I do my prayers, prayers to my 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃, prayers to 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃, prayers to the spirits that have their family members coming to me today. And just literally just take a second to just breathe and ground myself to be in my energy and aware of my energy. That way it doesn't conflict with the messages that are coming up or being delivered.
Absolutely. No, and Ifa definitely recognizes the tarot in any of its various forms. It's actually in various Odu, like 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 speaks about it, a couple different ones. And it says it can be as precise as Ifa, even though it speaks quite differently. Where in Ifa, you have a sign, you have a story, you have an interpretation and a resolution. The tarot is really powerful because it's so direct, and it's so spiritually influenced.
Let
Um,
me tell you how the
mhm.
tarot deck snitched on me one time. This is why I don't use the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 tarot deck.
Oh,
The
Lord.
first time I had my head read, and every reading it's been confirmed, which 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏 holds my head. But it also came out that there's certain things I have to be very private about. So I never
Of
really
course.
disclosed to the general public which 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 holds my head.
I don't blame
So
you.
I'm on live one night playing with the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏 tarot deck. One of my god sisters sent it to me, and I'm having a good time with this deck. It's one of the decks I read for personally because after that moment, yeah, you don't get to come out in public no more, baby. Because I'm like sitting there, like the tarot cannot tell you which 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏 holds your head, and I shuffle, 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 and I'm like, look. And literally, I'm like, I know this deck just didn't snitch on me. So I pulled out another card and was like, see, it doesn't do that. Child, that deck snitched on me because literally the 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏 who holds my head, the card is sitting there looking at me when I'm trying to say the tarot doesn't do that. I'm like, okay, we might have to rethink this because this deck just snitched.
Yeah, that's wild.
Just told all my little truths.
Yo, definitely. Yeah, they don't hold their tongue for nobody. And in due time, I think it's very important. And I being, Babalawo, when you understand and you take the oath, the father of secrets, you have to understand what your goal is or what your objective is to protect your client, protect the godchild, put them in a position to succeed. Because it is delicate information. There's taboos, and
Hmm.
then even above the orisha is the sign.
Hmm.
When you found out who your head was, or went through your initiation process to a certain degree, what was that feeling like? How did you feel when said information was revealed to you?
It, like everything else with DeFi for me, it just clicked. It just felt like home. And it's so many things where I was like, I thought, oh, yeah, I was going to be my mother, but this makes sense.
There you go.
And when it came down about the importance of privacy in my life, at first I didn't understand it. But through my platform, I've learned the importance of protecting myself, and that there's some people who are gonna love me, and there's some people who's gonna hate my stinking guts. And the information that we reveal to the public can be used to strengthen us, but people will also use it against us. And I learned that what happens in ritual space is private, and that's an experience for me. And every time I go into ritual space, I come out changed.
Yeah,
I
it's
experienced something that literally is like, I wasn't ready.
No, it's a different world. Like when you're in initiation rooms and certain spaces where the air has been cleansed and vocations have been made, conditions have been prepared, it's like you're in a whole different world. It's like time almost stands still, you know. So and you come out better, you know, when it's done right and everything has gone through its process patiently. There's no way you can't come out better than before. You know, what was it like? You know, and you talk about the growth, your privacy, and you know, as much as we give, you know, our public, the people that want to get to know about us, want to learn, etc. They want so much, you know, and which is fine because, you know, everybody's been in that position at one point. I want to learn, I want to grow. You know, what was it like as you're seeing this following grow from 10K, 20K, 50K to where you are now? What was that like? Did you wake up one morning? Was it a steady rise? What was that like?
It was steady. It was just kind of like a steady growth, and I don't really always pay attention to it. But I remember when I landed in Lagos, I hit 20,000, and I was like, "Ain't that something?"
Yeah.
I hit 20,000 as soon as I get into the motherland, and over the years, it's been growing. I can't believe sometimes I've been doing this since 2019.
Wow.
um and just seeing the growth and seeing it continue to grow and climb, seeing people continue to ask questions and seeing my growth, that is, it's amazing. And I would say it's humbling, but in a way, I spent so much of my life being humble, and I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm really recognizing and acknowledging who I am, that I am strong and I am powerful, that I have purpose and my mission has value, not just to me, but to the community. And every new follower, every question that I answer, it helps me to gain confidence in myself and my purpose here, that it's bigger than me, because I never imagined I'd have 60,000 followers, much less I thought 6,000 was something. Now
Sure.
I'm at 60,000, and it just amazes me. And I pray that as I continue to grow, that our community grows and strengthens as Ifa has helped me to grow and has strengthened me.
Absolutely. And it's very gratifying to see any of the personalities on IG who are putting Ifa in a positive light growing. You know, that's the most important thing. It's a fraternity, it's a sorority, it's a family. So it's really great to see that within you. You know, you look at the channel or you look at, you know, your page and you see you interacting, the content being released. It's very enjoyable. What direction is Ashe Shop going in? What's next?
What's next? The Ashe Shop is actually, we're about to spread our roots and actually put down roots in New
Nice.
Orleans now that my life is more settled and I've decided that I'm home. I don't want to really move around anymore. The Ashe Shop will be putting down roots here in New Orleans, so it's expect a physical location within the next 6 to 8 months where y'all can actually come to New Orleans and come to the Ashe Shop, and I can look you in your face when I tell you a story. There are going to be a lot more stories coming out because I want to focus my platform more on, and it's specifically on just telling stories of the Orishas and using those stories to help us relate to and understand things we go through on a daily basis. Just continuing to be here and authentic and as vulnerable as I can be, because we always don't get the space to be vulnerable, and I'm grateful for that. And yeah, we're just gonna keep growing. I got some more stories to tell.
No, that's awesome. And I'm sure, you know, you being a hometown girl, how has your response in New Orleans been now, especially with an announcement like this? How are people responding to the idea of being able to go see you, have that experience, you know, really interact? What's the response been like?
New Orleans is a big, small city.
I heard.
So it's a nice size, but everybody really knows everybody. And it surprised me because I was going over to the city hall the other day, and I'm getting on the elevator, and this lady looks at me and says, Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. I said, huh?
Oh, God. Nice.
It always surprises me when I go places and people are like, I know you. And I'm like, how? Because, like, wait, where you know me from? Because y'all know I'm a city girl. I get, we
Do
do
you,
city
you
stuff.
don't know me. You know me? You know, it's
Like,
like, it's
how do you know me? It in the response here, it has been amazing because it people know me from being a mental health practitioner and being around the city working with kids and
nice.
youth around the city, but people also are learning about me from social media and my mission. And it's exciting when I see people who are like, I want to learn about the Orisha, I want to learn more. I'm like, oh, this is why we started doing all of this.
Yeah,
So people can ask questions and we can have places to go. So it's very gratifying to see that, like, okay, we're getting somewhere.
I love that. I have to ask you, Ashley, because we've all been there. When they interact with us, people that are visible, people that have achieved a certain level of knowledge within this practice, they're like, man, what was it like when you started? What was your process like? I have to ask you, what advice can you give to all the people that may see you? That what advice would you give them if they're debating whether Ifa or Orisha is for them? What can you tell that young mind, that investigative mind that's trying to look for those answers? What would you say to them, before they make that decision to get in?
Experience is the best teacher.
Nice.
The what Everything we learn in life, it's best learned through experiencing and asking questions. And when it comes to wanting to learn, don't be afraid to ask questions about other people's experiences, or go to different festivals or different meetups or different things, and see what this experience is like for you.
Beautiful.
It's by learning through experience that you'll figure out what you like and what you don't like.
And I think what's great is there are so many options now. You can really verify people now, because before this was so hidden, so
Hmm.
secluded. You couldn't know whether said practitioner was ethical or not, whether you could trust them with giving them a deposit of set amount of money, like, or if they were even going to do things correctly regardless of the price. So I think now, like, the internet has become a big small city or a small big city where you just you if you have a good reputation in social media, you're pretty much good all the way through, because we're living in an age where it really doesn't cost much to say anything about anybody without any repercussions. So that's huge, because not only were you affecting lives positively professionally, and now delving into this, it just makes that so much stronger for you. So I tell you, Ashley, what an amazing conversation. I think what I liked the most about it was that people were able to really get to know you. What led to you being the woman you are, the professional you are, the figure you are. And I think that's really important, because I think sometimes people see, 65, 70,000 followers, and they're like, yeah, that person just woke up one day and it happened. And seeing you, that definitely wasn't the case. So, final words for your viewers, our viewers, the people that love you, the people that watch you. What would you like to say?
I would like to say my final words would be, don't be afraid to be you. And being you sometimes means understanding that you don't know who you are or what you want. And don't be afraid of that. It's all a process. Allow every day to be a learning experience. And every person you meet can be a potential teacher. Just really understand that you are important, you are valuable, and you're here for a reason.
It's Ashley the Storyteller, man. Keep writing your book, and we're gonna keep on watching.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We appreciate you,
Just
Ash. And no,
wait, one
please.
more thing. Make sure y'all go head over there and visit the
Of
asheshop.com,
course, of
because y'all know I
course.
have classes, I offer readings, we have
That
t-shirts,
shirt.
sweatshirts, hats, and of course I have a good line of spiritual skincare products that include body oils, lotions, soaps, baths. So make sure y'all go ahead and visit the asheshop.com.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Applause. Throw it up, Phil. For real. That was a mouthful. But yeah, definitely look up the Ashe Shop. All of that information, guys, is going to be in the description to get in contact with Miss Ashley. And Ash, once again, thank you so much before we go into some
Thank
closing
you.
thoughts. Hey, family, a couple things I wanted to go ahead and mention before we disconnect. I have some member shout outs that we definitely have to get in. I want to mention some VIP members who have been in that rank for more than a month. Miss Anna Rodriguez, hey Anna. Lulu Sprandel Healy, thank you, Lulu. Donna, Moon Goddess, hey Donna. Robert Cifuentes Jr., Junior Garcia, and Kathy Mati. Blessings to all of you guys. And some of our new members, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 and Particles of Light, right? Well, 𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗃candlesandmore.com is up and running for all products and services. The podcast is on all major platforms. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast, thank you. And until next time, see the light.